afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Rachel Jones, and there's a couple ways that I'm involved in biodiversity action and awareness across the city of Hamilton. I am currently the president of the Hamilton Naturalist Club, and I am an aquatic science communicator with Fisheries and Oceans Canada. I've been with DFO for the past almost 5 years now, and I started in the Great Lakes Laboratory for Fisheries and Aquatic Science, watching all of our technicians and biologists do all the great work in what you see behind me as Cootes Paradise in Hamilton Harbor. And currently I work in aquatic ecosystems on files that mostly focus on aquatic species at risk in the Ontario and Prairie region and the Arctic.
Hamilton is home to a variety of aquatic ecosystems, such as the lake, marshes, and waterfalls. Can you tell us about the fish in the Hamilton area and their role in the ecosystem?
Absolutely. So there are many different species of fish in the Hamilton area, hundreds in fact, and most of them use this spot behind me as a very important breeding and spawning ground too. So I'd even go as far to say that the habitat in Hamilton is just as important to the fish species as the fish are to the habitat itself. And there's good ways and bad ways for this. So most commonly you'll find species of trout, you'll find bass, you'll find different perch, minnows, and unfortunately with that comes a lot of invasive species as well, like a lot of the xenocarps that are in our waterways, unfortunately. So on the good side of things, there's a really good healthy balance of predator and prey with a lot of the fish species in this waterway. So the larger fish will help control the smaller population. The smaller fish will also produce a lot of food for a lot of the migratory birds that are very common and very famous for Cootes Paradise, being one of the most biodiverse hotspots in Canada, if not the world. So everything kind of works together in the circle of life, and that's kind of the most important role it plays in the ecosystem. On the other hand, things like industrial pollution, climate change, and habitat destruction from invasive species like the carp are producing a negative effect on these ecosystems, and that is something that a lot of different organizations, including DFO, the Hamilton Naturalist Club, and many other groups at different levels of government and conservation are all working to either mitigate, prevent, or restore.
You mentioned invasive carp species, which have been a destructive force amongst the Great Lakes and Cootes Paradise. Why is it so difficult to get rid of them?
The thing about carps is that they dominate, and they are very prolific breeders, and they've been around for decades, especially in the Hamilton Harbor and the watersheds around the Great Lakes. It's been an issue here for dating back at least to the 30s and 40s when they were introduced, and because they're such prolific breeders, the females can lay upwards of thousands of eggs in a single spawning session. It's really, really hard to mitigate and stay on top of the issues. So the ones that slip through the cracks, a lot of the smaller ones, they don't always make it because some of the other predators like birds can eat them before they reach their maturity level. But once they're big, they are big and they dominate. They take over entire habitats and they do not discriminate. And unfortunately, when they become that large, they have no natural predators. So that just allows them to reproduce even more when there's no competition. And when they spawn and feed in areas like Cootes Paradise, because of the how densely rich the nutrients here are because of the vegetation, they like to uproot aquatic plants. So once they do that, they spit out, they kind of like filter, and they keep the nutrients for themselves. They spit out all the sediment, which really clouds the water and makes it hard for light to get through. It disrupts ecosystems and habitat of smaller fish that live and breed in these aquatic plants, and just makes it really hard to regenerate this habitat. So again, once they dominate, it's really, really hard to take over. So we have to come up with different measures of ways of reducing their population and ensuring that new ones don't get in. So we have things like the Fishway here at Cootes Paradise, which was developed by RBG back in 1997, I believe. And since then, it's done an amazing job of keeping carp out when they come to spawn in these waters in June, May, June. And once all the fish leave in November, we can kind of sort through and monitor and track our efforts and success rates as well too. So we're constantly learning, constantly evolving, and it's also really hard too because it's not the kind of fish that you can just catch and eat. They hold so much toxicity that they pose numerous threats. Even just their carcass and what can leak, the heavy metals that leak out of them, pollutes the water even further than what they just do on their own. Think of like a really excited golden retriever just running through a very delicate meadow and how excited it gets and wants to roll around and have fun. That's a carp in our waterways. It just comes, it has its party, and it doesn't clean up for itself. It's a very, very, very bad house guest, and we don't want to invite it back. And that goes for their distant cousins with the goldfish as well. If you have a goldfish in your family and you want to flush it down the toilet, just remember where that water goes, right here. Please don't do that.